Hello, Happy New Year 2025. Welcome back to my channel. But those of you that don't know me, that was a bit of a skip, wasn't it? Those of you that don't know me, my name is Kerry. I'm a huge Disney fan, Disney adult, self-confessed. And my other videos have been vlog videos around Disneyland Paris and the Disneyland Paris Hotel. However, I won't be going back to Disneyland Paris or one of the Disney parks for a little while now. So obviously I want to give you some content, and my tier lists are great. So today, for the first video of 2025, we are doing a tier list of the Disney films throughout the decades. The first decade we are combining two for the first few videos, in fairness. The first one is the 30s and 40s. The reason I did this is because there was only one in the 30s, that was Snow White in 1937, and all the rest were in the 40s. Then we'll be doing 50s and 60s, 70s and 80s, and then from the 90s, that's when the films become a lot more regular, a lot more come out each time. And then we're at a point now where they're just coming back out like every few months or something. So that'll be interesting by then. But in the meantime, we're going into the 30s and 40s, and what I personally think are the best ones from the 30s and 40s into a tier list. There are some that I think are amazing, some that I think are not so amazing, but we'll get to those. This may be split over 2 videos, we shall see. But if it's the case, I won't keep you waiting another week. Literally, this goes up on Monday. I'll be putting the next one up on Wednesday. So in the meantime, enjoy seeing where I rank things. Please make sure to comment below the video on where you would rank things and your thoughts on my rankings. Let's go. Okay, so we are now looking obviously at my screen with my different films on. As you can see, we have Snow White, Pinocchio, Fantasia, Reluctant Dragon, Dumbo, Bambi. I don't know what I was thinking. I was like Batu? No, Bambi. Saludos Amigos, Three Caballeros, Fun and Fancy Free, and then finally The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. So let's start with Snow White, as that was the one that started it all. Snow White, what can we say about Snow White? Well, first things first, I want this little thing off my screen, so there we go. I'm doing this on Canva because I tried lots of different ways, and I just didn't like the way it turned out. So we're on Canva, you're going to get the little lines in there and everything, but quite frankly, we get across the point of what I'm trying to achieve here, which is a tier list. So anyway, back to Snow White, because I digress, because that's just what I do. So Snow White obviously was the first film, the one that started it all, 1937, was the first full-length Disney animated film. There was one before that, which was, if you can hear the washing machine behind, I'm really sorry, I've got to switch it off before recording. And I've also tried recording this now like 3 times, and various different things kept going wrong, namely the sound. So I hope the sound's sounding good. Got my little lapel mic. I don't know if you'll be able to see it when I actually put it on. Put the video on the screen. Editing, that's fun. Anyways. Snow White, 1937, the story of a princess who was living with her stepmother, who was the Queen. The Queen had a magic mirror. The dog is growling at me. No. The Queen was jealous of Snow White because she had a magic mirror that told her that Snow White was the fairest in the land, where previously the Queen was Snow White was fairest in the land. As per usual, historically with women, older women try and keep other women in their place for fear of losing their one and only special place in the world, which obviously in her case was being the fairest of them all. Little dig at workplaces and women in the workplace there. Pros and cons. Now, I'm going to start with the cons. The biggest con of the film is that I think that the fact that for some reason they decided Snow White should be 14. Snow White should be 14. Not quite sure why, considering at the end, obviously, she is kissed by a prince and taken away to be his wife forever. She's 14. Okay, so I know things have changed, but come on Disney. They didn't have to make her 14. They could have made her 18 or 21 or something like that, but no, 14. There was something I saw once online that said that the prince was supposed to be about 32, but I don't know if that's accurate or not. I mean, I think sort of making him, if she was going to be 14, making him 18 would have been better. If they're going to make him 18, so they're going to make her 18, then maybe he should have been like 21 or 22, at the oldest 25. But still, I don't know why they made that decision to make her 14. So that's the biggest issue for me, is the fact she's 14. Then obviously with the whole thing of her needing to be saved by a prince and all that sort of stuff. When I grew up watching it, I grew up in the 80s, and especially as a child, that didn't seem like an issue to me. obviously in the 80s, we were back into the era of a lot of mothers who have been told they can do anything with their lives and they can be who they want to be. During the feminist movement of the 1960s, had then gone back into working for, not working, staying at home and raising their children. So that was just that was what my mum did. That's what my friends' mums did, and it seemed no issue to me that the princess was going to waiting for a guy to marry her and save her. Looking at it now, times have changed, and it's problematic. But I think that's what we need to realise, is that times have changed, and we just need to kind of accept the story for what it was. The time when it's set, things were very, very different as well. And for Rachel Zegler to be slating the original film so much when she's been given the job of a lifetime to be a Disney princess, which for me is the job of a lifetime. Nobody was forcing her to take on that role. She knew what she was doing. She knew it would make her big, and yet amazingly she's managed to screw it up for herself. But for her to be slating it and acting like the original film is such a big problem, when the film was made in 1937, was set in God knows what time it was supposed to be set, centuries ago, clearly, it was a different time. And that is generally what women did for many, many years. It's only in the last sort of, I'd say 30 years, 30, 40, maybe 50 years, where women have been going more into the workplace and have got more equality to men. We've still got a long way to go, but, doing a lot better than they've been doing for the last God knows how many centuries. So my little feminism chat there. But the film for what it is, the problems with it, I do believe, are outweighed by the good things with it, the pros of which being, obviously, it was the first film, so it is iconic in what it was and what it was made, how it was made back in the time. To have made something when you have to literally draw out every single scene by hand, colour it by hand, but paint it by hand and everything, and then sort of have the little flip thing to get the film to be made into a full feature-length film that was about probably an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and 10, something like that, is incredible. And even looking at back in it now, it has aged, but at the same time it hasn't, in the sense of that it's a classic. And I think we can still enjoy classic films. Would kids nowadays enjoy it? I don't know. I think we've definitely got some much stronger princesses with way more personality that suit the modern day a lot more, and ones we'd rather show our children. I don't mind. I never had a problem with my daughter, who's now 20. I never had a problem with her watching Snow White when she was younger. My son's 11. I never had a problem with him seeing Snow White when he was younger. They knew the deal. It's up to you to point out the differences and where the things are different in the film to how they are now, and the fact that it is also fiction, and how fiction is obviously different to real life. That's your job as a parent, to point out that difference, to set a good example by being a good role model to them. But there was so many pluses with the film. The songs are great, absolute classic songs. Hi Ho, I still probably sing Hi Ho at work, or someone at my work will just randomly sing Hi Ho at some point because it's off to work we go. So it's just one of those things. Whistle While You Work. Who hasn't done their housework while singing that at one point or another? Just to try and make it a little bit more fun. Trying to think of another song. I mean, I've definitely learned over wishing well and saying, I'm wishing. And obviously someday my prince will come. As problematic as it technically is, it's fine as it is. And the little Yodelay Hee Hoo song, I sing that way too frequently. This is probably being a Disney fan. I'm not the average person, obviously. I am a hardcore Disney fan. That's my thing. That's always been my thing, is that I've always been a very proud Disney fan, and people know that about, not everybody knows that about me, but people know that about me, and they'll know that I'll sing Disney songs. I'm not hurting anybody. I'll shut up if the times are inappropriate. I'm not going to be sat at a funeral singing, someday my prince will come, obviously. But the songs are iconic. The songs are fun, and I think for those points alone, the fact that it is a classic, the story's sweet, the dwarves are really funny. I mean, I remember our son watching the film when he was about 4 or 5, maybe 6, and he was laughing so much at the dwarfs because they're funny. The animals in the forest are cute. Love that. Love the thought that you could just bring animals to yourself, like Giselle in Enchanted. But again, it inspired so many other films as well. And as I said, obviously the songs, I think very much means that I've got to put this one at an S tier. So the first film is going straight in at the top. So our second film is, of course, Pinocchio, the story of a wooden puppet brought to life by a blue fairy, and has to prove himself to be good and true and honest. It's been that long since I've seen the film, I can't specifically remember what it was. Always true and kind or something along those lines. And he has also appointed his conscience in the form of a cricket called Jiminy Cricket, and all the different escapades he gets into. Now, the cons with that film. The children get turned into donkeys. That's horrific. Like, truly horrific. Imagine if you have children, or you have little siblings or cousins or something like that. Imagine them being taken away from their parents, turned into donkeys, being unable to speak, and being made to be slaves. Look on the donkeys' faces, even when they can't speak. They know what's going on. They are still humans that have been turned into donkeys. That's awful. Secondly, the whole concept putting on screen of children, albeit naughty children, but children smoking and drinking, I don't think is overly brilliant thing to be portraying in film. But then, of course, this was 1940, this film came out, so things were quite different. Back in those time, they didn't actually know that smoking was bad for you, so I suppose it was just a thing that grown-ups did, like drinking is, I suppose, for us now. Drinking obviously isn't ideal, but, you know, a majority of us do it. Majority of us drink, sometimes in excess, and it's quite a casual thing, whereas back in the 1940s, smoking was a lot more prevalent because it was a lot more of a casual thing because people didn't realise it killed you. So I still don't like the fact that it's being portrayed. I'm not sure how they could get around that, so it's just on there anyway. Stromboli, he was extremely unpleasant, but we got another one coming up on that. Speaking of unpleasant, can we speak about this villain? Oh, sorry, that's my dog. My dog has decided he's going to jump up. Oh, can we? This is Loki. Say hello, Loki. Say hi. So hello, Loki. He's just going to cuddle my shoulder, but he may just be here for the video now. So yeah, here's a dog. Maybe he's not covering my mic too much. Yes, I know. I love you too. He's trying to lick my face. That guy who basically Honest John and Gideon sell Pinocchio to, the guy who runs Pleasure Island. You explain to me how he is not listed generally amongst the villains. You've got your Jafar, you've got your Maleficent, you've got your Lady Tremaine and Ursula and all that lot. Why have we not got this dude? He is pure freaking evil. He literally buys children to then trick into coming to this place they think is amazing, to turn them into donkey slaves. Children. I know I said this with the donkey slaves, but this guy is... You explain to me someone in Disney who is more evil than this dude. Now, okay, Cruella de Vil wanted to make puppies into a coat, but she didn't succeed, whereas this guy has probably been doing this for centuries. Centuries. Of course not centuries. Has probably been doing this for years. How many children have been turned into donkeys under this guy? He is horrific. Absolutely horrific. So that is a con of the fact that he is not identified as a big villain in the Disney films. That's a con to the film. So pros to the film. As I said earlier, Jiminy Cricket, what an absolute legend. Great guy, great character. He's funny, he is kind, he is honest and helpful to Pinocchio. He doesn't need to be helpful to Pinocchio. He's just sweet. Almost problematic, but a point that I think is absolutely hilarious is when he is he's singing "Give a Little Whistle," and he's all the little clocks are going at the same time as him. And there's a point where one of the clocks is rather gifted in the derriere area, little woodwork woman, and off she goes. She sort of turns around, looks at him, and she turns around, and he sort of looks at her bum and goes "woohoo" or something, and then follows her into the thing. Okay, objective, but really funny. He's a cricket. She's made of wood. It's not even the same species as him, but he appreciates that booty. So, I was going to say something else then. I changed the word to booty last second. And also, on that note, Figaro and Cleo are so freaking sweet. It's unbelievable. I love the fact that they, spoiler alert, make their own little cameo in Fun and Fancy Free, because they're both really cute. I would have loved to have seen more of them. But, you know, what can you not love about a a black kitten and a flirtatious little goldfish. That's so cute. Again, the songs, Give a Little Whistle. All the other ones, I've Got No Strings, hello. Brilliant song. And of course, the absolute epitome of Disney songs, When You Wish Upon a Star, was from Pinocchio. I mean, it's like the Disney song. If I hear that song play somewhere, I get emotional. Honestly, I'll start tearing up, especially if it's like a Disney park or something. But even sometimes at the beginning of films, I don't think they have it anymore. It's when it used to be like Walt Disney motion picture videos or something. And they used to have this little thing that would go do 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 do. I'm sure people that are around my age will remember, you know, the VHS with that little thing at the beginning. They still have something similar now, but it's not quite the same as it was. But so the songs are amazing. The characters are adorable. As much as they're villains, Honest John and Gideon are really funny. I do like them. There's a point where Gideon looks like he's about to hit Pinocchio over the head with a mallet, and Honest John takes it off him, whacks him with it, and says, "No, go." Goes, "Don't be cruel," and whacks him with it. And I don't know why, but that always used to make me and my brother laugh loads when we were younger. So yeah, so with all these things in mind, great things about the film. However, shut up, dog. No. With this in mind, so with all these things in mind, where to put it on the tier list? Now, I've explained the plus points and the minus points. Great classic film, but they turn kids into donkeys, and that's terrifying. So with that in mind, it's going in the B tier. So I told you, Canva, ended doing this brilliantly. Okay, now, swiftly moving on to Fantasia. So Fantasia was obviously the third film. I think it came out in either 1940 or 1941. I'll put it on the bottom of the screen for you. But it was basically, obviously, animations over the top of classical pieces of music. I believe there were 8 pieces of classical music in there. I couldn't name them all for you. But, I mean, it's good. I really like Fantasia. I think it's a great film. It's got so much history to it. And again, the word classic is coming in because it brought us Disney? Because it brought us Mickey and the Sorcerer's Apprentice. So Mickey with the hat, and the hat is so famous, so well known, so iconic throughout all the Disney parks, and the whole thing has been like spoofed so many times with different with the mop and buckets going around and the sweeping things up and stuff like that. Obviously, mop and buckets don't sweep up it. That was a broom. The broom's going around, and then the mop and bucket, the bucket's tipping the water in and everything, and it's been used and spoofed so many times, so it just goes to show how iconic it is. It's brought us lots of things at the Disney parks, so obviously the show Fantasmic that's at Walt Disney World in Hollywood Studios, and it's also in Disneyland, California. I don't know if it's any of the Asian ones. I will have to look into that, but it's also a big part of, as I mentioned in my Disneyland Paris video, in the Disneyland Park one, Mickey's PhilharMagic, where Donald gets hold of the hat and the wand and havoc ensues, or as my husband referred to it, as duck abuse in 4D, because Donald really gets it. He really gets it in that ride. But that was amazing. The other segments I really, really enjoyed when I was young. Actually, no, we'll go to the ones I didn't enjoy quite so much. There is only one that I really, really don't enjoy, and that's the dinosaur one. I just think it's bleak and it's miserable, and obviously they all die at the end. We know they're all going to, all the dinosaurs died, but did we have to see it? It was very aggressive, lots of fighting and stuff. I just don't know why it needed to be in that. Everything else is very light-hearted and fun, and then you've got this real, except for Nightball Mountain, but even that's not that bad. But then maybe this real bleak thing right in the middle. So yeah, that's definitely a con. Another con I would say is that it doesn't stand the test of time, I don't think. Children nowadays would not be interested in this film in the slightest, and I'm just being honest with you, they wouldn't be. Even as a kid myself in the 80s, I would still whiz through several segments and just watch the segments that I like to watch. It must be so much easier watching on a DVD than it was a video, and I probably wore out the video, whizzing back and forth all the time. But yeah, I just don't think it would stand the test of time now. I don't think it'd be that interesting. But for what it was when it was, yeah, I think kids probably would have enjoyed that back in the day. They didn't have a lot else to do, so going to the cinema and watching that probably looked absolutely fantastic on the big screen when you didn't really go to, and it was a whole thing to go to the cinema, or the movies, sorry. Pros of the film. Again, as I already said, Sorcerer's Apprentice segment, but also I used to really, really love the Centaur segment, like the mythological bit. Absolutely loved that. And then I also used to love the bit afterwards with the segment afterwards with the hippos and the crocodiles and the ostriches and the elephants, the hippopotami, sorry, hippos, whatever. Yeah. Trying to be clever now. I used to love that segment. I thought it was really funny. I used to enjoy that as a child. Deems Taylor, you just wait until you see my husband's Fantasia review to see how we feel about Deems Taylor. What a ledge. No spoiler. But all in all, the film itself is very, very well made. And I think for that reason, and the fact that it hasn't got too many negatives, it's going in an A tier. So I put Fantasia in an A tier. By the way, if I haven't said already, please comment below where you would put these in your own tier list. I'd love to see all 10 of them in a tier list. That'd be really, really, just to let me know, just say this S, this A, this B, etc. I'd love to know your thoughts on it, and also, your opinions on my thoughts on it. Obviously be nice, there's no need to be an arse. This is Disney video. It's supposed to be happy. If, you're not going to be happy, then why are you watching it, you strange, strange person? But I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Okay, so on to our fourth film, and not quite so well-known film, this one. This is The Reluctant Dragon. This was a mixture of... it's weird, because I haven't put things like Mary Poppins and Bedknobs and Broomsticks and Pete's Dragon and things like that into these lists at all, for any of them. But this one does have a fair bit that is not animated, but it still comes under the same banner as the other films in these decades. So Reluctant Dragon is a mix of live action and animated. The whole story is based around this guy called Robert Benchley, who I believe was a comedian in the 1930s and 40s. But he has this book, The Reluctant Dragon, that he thinks would make a great animated film for Walt Disney to make. So he goes off to the Walt Disney Studios to speak to Walt Disney to pitch in the idea of turning The Reluctant Dragon into a film. In the process, he is shown around the studio, so he gets to see how they make the films, how they did the animation, the sound effects, all the different technological things, which back in the 1940s was absolutely fascinating. I would really recommend watching it just to see what they used to do the efforts they used to go to make the films. Because obviously now with CGI, it's so much easier, and AI, it's so much easier. But back in the day, it was it was the OG ways of making films, with drawing things and flipping the pages and everything. But it's really, really cool, those bits. They have a few little animated segments in it. There's a little film about Goofy. There's one about this genius child. And then finally the film of the Reluctant Dragon itself. So cons of the film. Cons, I don't think it would appeal to children now. I don't know how much it would appeal to children in the 1940s either. But again, like I said, with Fantasia, they didn't have a lot to watch at the cinema, so purely the thing of going to the cinema itself would have been really, really exciting. So I think it would have been enjoyed back then. I don't know so much now. Another con is the Robert Benchley feels the need to flirt with every single woman under the age of 30 in the studio. So yep, that's been quite normalised. Just hit on every woman you come across. Nice. The cartoon about the baby went on for way too long. It wasn't as exciting and interesting as I would have liked it to have been. And finally the segment. Okay, now I know what I was going to say. Right, Sam Forgod, if you ever watch this channel, I love her channel. Please go watch it. She does lots of Disneyland Paris vlogs. But if you ever watch this video, she's going to hate me for this. I don't like Goofy. My husband doesn't like Goofy either. We find him very annoying. He just it's just irritating. I'm sorry, but yeah. And so the fact to have Goofy in was a bit of a negative for me, but I can get past that. It's fine. Pros for the films. As I said, it was really, really interesting seeing how they used to make films. There is a particularly good bit where they are showing how they do the sound effects, and I found that so fascinating. And there's the segment with this woman who we refer to as the chicken woman. When you watch the film, you'll see what I mean. Who does like noises for chickens and stuff in films. And that was pretty funny. That was really good. Really liked seeing that. The cartoon of the reluctant dragon itself was brilliant. Spoiler alert, but the dragon's really camp. Not at all like you'd expect him to be. He's into poetry and baking and things like that. And it's just, this whole village wants to destroy this dangerous dragon. He's not dangerous in the slightest. And then finally, a positive segment for the reluctant dragon was the upside down cake poem. You just got to hear the upside down cake poem. Absolutely brilliant. All in all, it's a really, really great underrated film, and I highly, highly recommend that you watch it because it is really, really good. And on that note, that means I will be putting this into the A tier. So underrated. Watch it. Seriously, you won't regret it. It's really good. That's on a strange angle, and I don't like that. Sorry. Right. So our next film and our final film for this part of the video, this part 2 will be coming up on Wednesday, is Dumbo. Now, I like to think that pretty much everyone has seen Dumbo at some point in their lives because it's great. It's a really good film. I would recommend it. I'll just go straight on to the cons. The fact how Dumbo is bullied so much from the moment he's born is just freaking horrible. The other elephants are horrible to him for no reason other than how big his ears are. It's not his fault he's got those ears. And clearly they're jealous of his mum and the fact that she's had a baby and they're still, not having baby. Who's she having the baby with? I have no idea. But the stork, I suppose, the stork brings the baby, but still, in the animal kingdom, generally, they all want to have babies, don't they? That's the whole thing. They're all supposed to be procreating and carrying on the species. So I'm sure there's certain amounts of jealousy there from the other elephants to Mrs. Jumbo. Who's Mr. Jumbo? Anyway, the song Baby Mine breaks my heart every time. It never used to when I was little. It's only been since I have had my own children, and I don't know whether that's something to do with it or just as I've got older, I've understood it a little bit better. But otherwise, it's quite besides the sort of bullying and stuff, it's quite a chirpy, happy film. The songs are quite chirpy and happy, and then you throw in that one, and it just gets you. For me, I don't need that. I don't need that in my Dumbo. So, as much as it's a nice song, I put that down as a personal con for me. The usual thing in early Disney of the stereotyping of races, I don't like, obviously, in the film. But again, it's something when I was little I didn't even notice. And it's kind of sad that it took this long for even children to be taught, that the stereotyping of races and things isn't good. I mean, you'd have the whole Casey June is running down the hill, which is a great little song. Love the ride at Disney. Disneyland, I should say, rather than just Disney. But then you get that bit where they're putting up the tent in the in the rain and the wind, and it's clearly from the voices of the people. They are black slaves doing it. I just didn't even notice because it's in the dark, so you don't see them. You just see outlines. I never made a connection that it was black slaves putting up the circus tent. And then obviously the crows, very much stereotyping of black people back in those times. But again, not in the negative way so much that the slavery was, but again, I'm white, what do I know? I've never had to experience any of this, so I'm not going to go in there and say which one's better than the other, just from a personal perspective. From looking at it, I was like, I reckon that was probably worse than that one. But I would say they are the major cons with the film. Otherwise, the film is pretty good. It's one of those ones I used to watch a lot as a child. The pros of the film, Dumbo's adorable, obviously. Timothy Mouse is possibly the greatest sidekick they've ever had. The fact that the way he is so loyal to Dumbo, they just happen to be in the right place at the right time, but he's so behind him and everything. So Timothy Mouse, especially the bit where they get drunk and he sees the big bubble, sees his own reflection in it, and goes, "Hi, George," and hugs it. Me and my brother used to find that absolutely hilarious. When we were children, we used to whiz it back over and over again, and yeah, love that. Other positives in the film, once again, the songs are great. When I See an Elephant Fly is brilliant. Most of all, I think my biggest pro with the film, and it's probably going to be a lot of people's biggest con actually, is Pink Elephants on Parade. I think it's brilliant. Great segment, really creepy. I like creepy. So yeah, I would say that's one of those positive segments in the film. So on that note, I think the level of the positives outweigh the level of the negatives. And so I am, again, going to be putting Dumbo at an A tier. So we are 5 films in. It's looking good. Obviously, we've got Snow White in the S tier, Fantasia, Reluctant Dragon, and Dumbo at A, and then Pinocchio at B. Let me know in the comments if you agree with what I've given these films so far, or if you would change it. Why would you change it? Let me know also what you think I'm going to think of the other 5 films. So Bambi, Saludos Amigos, Three Caballeros, Fun and Fancy Free, and Ichabod and Mr. Toad. And also let me know where you would put them into a tier listing. Anyway, I will be back in 2 days with the next video. Look forward to seeing you then. Bye!